Soliloquy presentation. Main idea. MacBeth is progressively losing his mind due to internal conflict/guilt caused by external factors. Macbeth Soliloquy. Act 1, Scene 3. Macbeth starts out as a fairly rational and cowardly person and reacts to murder as most people would. In the beginning, Macbeth points out that the prophecy, quote, "given me earnest of success," end quote, saying that he wants power, but later on, Macbeth talks of his fears about what he would have to do to gain power. This relates to the main idea due to Macbeth's indecisiveness about murdering the king.
Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. I thank you, gentlemen. This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs, against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so single state of man that function is smothered in sunrise, and nothing but what is not.
Macbeth Soliloquy. Act 1, Scene 7. This soliloquy connects to the big idea through the idea of guilt. Macbeth ponders, quote, "First I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not to bear the knife myself." End quote. Macbeth thinks about the dynamic between him and his king, and his role as a subject, ideas which provide resistance to what he's plotting.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could tremble up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. And pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horse upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tear shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other.
Macbeth Soliloquy. Act 2, Scene 1. Earlier in the play, Macbeth is only reasoning with his thoughts out loud, such as when motivating himself to be set on killing Duncan in both soliloquies in Act 1. However, right before actually killing Duncan, his imagination takes control, showing him a dagger. Macbeth questions, quote, "Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain?" End quote. Macbeth questioning his own imagination signifies how Macbeth is further losing himself to wanting the throne.
Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools o' the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade in dungeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now over the one-half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder. Alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch. Thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides, towards his design moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps which way they walk. For fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat, he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives.
Macbeth's Soliloquy, Act 2, Scene 1. Earlier in the play, Macbeth is only reasoning with his thoughts out loud, such as when motivating himself to be set on killing Duncan in both soliloquies in Act 1. However, right before actually killing Duncan, his imagination takes control, showing him a dagger. Macbeth questions, quote, Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? End quote. Macbeth questioning his own imagination signifies how Macbeth is further losing himself to wanting the throne.
Bring them before us. To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo dig deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and, to that dauntless temper of his mind, he hath the wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked. As it is said, Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when they first put the name of king upon me, and bade them to speak to him. Then prophet-like they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren scepter in my gripe. Thence, to be wretched with an unaligned hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issues have I filed my mind. For them the gracious Duncan I have murdered, put rancors in the vessel of my peace, only for them and mine internal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seed of Banquo's kings. Rather than so, come, Fates, into the list, and champion me to the utterance. Who's there?
Macbeth's Soliloquy, Act 4, Scene 1. Macbeth says, quote, Answer me to what I ask you, end quote. He wants the witches to give him answers about his fate. Their prophecies give him a false sense of security, which motivates him to commit more evil deeds.
I conjure you by that which you profess. However you come to know it, answer me. Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germans tumble altogether, even till destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask you.
Macbeth's Soliloquy, Act 5, Scene 3. This connects to the main idea as it shows how Macbeth's guilt makes him realize that he will not be able to experience everything he wanted in life. He realized that, quote, in their stead curses not loud but deep, mouth honor, breath, end quote, and will only be able to face the consequences of his actions. Because of this, he again goes through a radical change of mentality that has been occurring throughout the play.
Satan, I am sick at heart when I behold. Satan, I say, this push will cheer me ever or deceit me now. I have lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the sear, the yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age, as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends. I must not look to have, but in their stead, curses, not loud but deep, mouth honor, breath, which the poor heart would fain deny, and dare not. Satan.
Macbeth soliloquy, Act 5, Scene 5. Macbeth realizes, quote, life's but a walking shadow, end quote, and that there is no meaning to life after finding out that his wife is dead. And the repetition of the word tomorrow shows the relentless passage of time. The soliloquy provides a glimpse into his mind, showing his despair, suggesting that the consequences of his action may have taken a toll on his sanity. It explains Macbeth's loss of hope, his loss of his moral compass, and his decline in mental state.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been time for such a word. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.